Welcome back. Let's continue this discussion now on election and, of course, well, money making, if you like. I'm being joined on the program now by Omori Aigbe, who is the Senior Monitoring Evaluation Officer for Center for Democracy and Development. Also joining us on the program is Nelson Ekujimi, who is the Executive Director, Committee for Protection of People's Mandates. Gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us on the program. Let me start with you, Mr. Aigbe. How do we disabuse citizens' mind now, their mind that election period is not a time for money making? Because whether we like it or not, for quite a lot of our citizens, they think election time is a time for them to make money.
Yeah, thanks for having me, DG. Yeah, it's almost like it's synonymous with money making elections because of the way money comes in and from the party level, nomination of forms, expression of interest form and nomination forms are skyrocketing. Money just come into the political landscape, as it were. People have been saving in the last 4 years for this election. You are going to be deploying party officials, deploying party agents on election day, and going to be paying them. You're going to be running from one door to the other, campaigning and buying drinks and all of that, and giving people transport refund. So it costs a lot of money. And people also now know, particularly those who've been in power for the last 4 years, realizing that they've actually not been committed to democratic dividends. People are waiting usually for the next 4 years to say, now you are back, you have to pay. You are going to pay ahead. So, but it's not clear that paying ahead is not helping our country. Paying ahead is weakening our democratic architecture. Paying ahead our system. Paying ahead is turning out the worst of leadership. Citizens now need to realize that taking money in elections is actually grounds for bad leadership. So it's clear, it's glaring. We've had this last year, in the last election cycle in 2015, then in 2019. Hopefully in 2023, people need to realize that it is time to say, no, I don't want money. I prefer lives. I prefer livelihood. I prefer welfare. I prefer a leader that can truly provide this governance. Election is just a tiny piece of the architecture of that's to do with governance system. After election, so what? Election is not an end in itself. It's a means to strengthen democratic architecture. It's a means to providing the dividends that the people desire. It's a means to providing the good roads, providing the pipeline water, providing all of the essential that people do require. It's a fundamental point that citizens must need at this point, with all of the debacle we have had in this country, all of the crisis with our governance, security, and all of otherwise, that people needed to now take it very seriously. That no to 5,000, no to 500, no to 1,000. It is time to vote and vote for the right candidate.
Mr. Ekujimi, look, we always say this. Everything he said is something we've always said. And the truth is that the electorate would usually expect that when people get, when they elect their political leaders now, they expect all of those things that Omori has talked about. They want good roads, they want better education, they want good schools and all of that. But then they also demand money from these politicians. They actually, quite a number don't vote without being induced. I mean, you have monitored elections. You will definitely be monitoring the 2023 election. You've monitored several elections in this country. And the truth is that vote buying and money during election is a big issue. So for the citizens now who collect money and at the same time demand good governance, how do you reconcile that?
Well, thank you very much for having me. I think that is the contradiction of our democracy, whereby when persons come to the polling stations on election day, they see it as a day for them to make all the money in the world, because of the fact that we have a very, very poor orientation about what democracy is about, what election is about. On election day, you are expected to come to the polling station, having been abreast of the credentials of the candidates that are vying for various offices, and for you to do the needful for who will be in charge of your political and economic destiny for the next 4 years. But unfortunately, repeatedly, we have seen situations where persons come to the polling stations on election day and they are looking left and right, waiting to be induced. And for them, it is a day that they believe, they want to get the immediate gains. Ordinarily, it should be about gains in the long run, gains for 4 years. But repeatedly, we have seen that the electorate, come to the polling station and they want to be appeased, they want to be induced to vote. But, be that as it may, I think it goes on us as a society to continuously sensitizing and educating our people on the real essence of election. Election is supposed to be the festival of voters, a day where you display your skill about voting for the candidate of your choice. But unfortunately, we have seen that, it has become an avenue for commercialization of one's franchise.
What can we blame for this? I mean, what can we actually say is responsible for this? Because we know in time past in this country, back in the 60s, our elections were not so monetized as they are now. What exactly is responsible?
I think the warped culture in the society is responsible for this, whereby everything we do, every relationship we engage in, we look at the monetary aspect of it. If I'm talking to you or you are going on the road and I say hi to you, I expect you to dip your hand in the pocket. I remember when we were growing up in those days, even when we grew up in this same environment, where an elderly person is, standing in a bus and you, a young person, is sitting down, nobody needs to tell you that, come on, get up for the old man or the old woman to sit. And when you see an old man or an old woman carrying something on his or her head, you know that as a young man, you are supposed to assist, to carry the load. But unfortunately, we live in a society today whereby the young man, if you are carrying a load and you are not ready to put money in front, that look, help me with this baggage I'm carrying, and this is what you have. The young man or woman or young girl is not ready to move. So for me, it's a matter of a warped culture that we have been saddled with over the years. We have lost our values as a people. Our life today is about commercialization. So that is responsible for it until we start reorientating ourselves. And it should start from the home.
All right, let me come to you, Omori. How can a people who get induced to vote during elections, how can they now demand accountability from a leader who has emerged through such a process? I mean, would they actually have the right to demand accountability and demand good governance?
What you said is true, but it's important to look at some background to where we are now. Election vote buying is not new. We've had tomatoes and onions and all of those as substitute for voting. I remember in 1990, the June 12, the most popular June 12 elections, even though it was option A4, there were tomatoes and wrappers and all of that. You vote and you get one of those. But at the time, it became worse when we started monetization process, where now you don't have to buy tomatoes. You don't have to buy all of those, akara and all of that. So you just monetize it. So the thing is, what the politicians have done is that they've mastered the art. You keep the people poor, keep them underneath. They will always come for it. A songwriter said, give the dog the bone, and the dog will find his way home. When politicians know that citizens will always come for that peanut. I give you a story. With the level of poverty in this country, someone is looking for what to eat and probably just always waiting for the next day. So we're just living, there are huge community of people in this country who are living from hand to mouth. 500 naira today, maybe 200 naira tomorrow, maybe 1,000 naira the next day. On election day, and you're able to, they secure 5,000 naira. They weigh that 5,000 naira. They are not looking at what you are looking at. They are looking at how they're able to survive for the next day or 2 or 3 or 5 days. So that's the architecture. So for those individuals, there's absolutely nothing you can tell them. However, there's something we saw in FCT election, the recent FCT election in February of this year, where a particular political party had gone to a community to mobilize youth, a number of women, to the voting point, and the women came and voted against the party that mobilized them. That was a very unique one, and that is a replica of what happened in Anambra election. A woman, which the video that went viral, a woman was to be given 5,000, and he said, "No, I don't want this 5,000." Even though the party wanted to vote for, she wanted to vote for was going to give less the amount, but she preferred to vote for that particular party of her choice, because she has seen the enormity of the change of leadership. She has seen the importance of good leadership. She has seen the tendency that vote buying will, the enormity and the crisis of development in their area. So what we need to do consistently, we have never had this before. We have never had the kind of insecurity in this country before. We have never had the kind of poverty level in this country before. So it could be an opportunity to them, we need to sensitize our citizenry that whether you like it or not, you take the money and you vote for the person, and you know that you're just taking the money because of your own selfish interest. However, why don't you vote the candidate with the improvement in law?
Let me ask you this. Sorry to interject. Let me ask you. Let me ask you if you can hear me. Is it wise to actually ask people to take the money and vote their conscience? Is it a wise thing to do?
Well, so that is the thing that you don't say. And you don't also now say them, you don't also tell them not to take the money, because they will take the money. So the thing is just that people vote their choice, vote the best candidate. If they go ahead to take the money, let the consciousness of voting for the right candidate be in their subconsciousness. What we want people to do is to vote the right candidate. What we want people to do is not to just take money and vote for the money, or take the money and vote for the otherwise. So let them take it. You know, it's a choice. It's a choice of the citizen. But the citizen need to know the implication of taking money and voting the wrong candidate. And when we have had that before now, it's not an excuse, or I mean, it's not that we don't have examples. We have a lot of examples from 1999 to 2003, 2007, and up to 2019. We've had this trajectory of vote buying, when leaders buy vote. It is certain that this is business. When you buy vote, you have to take your money back. Every businessman does it. Politicians are no exception. Let's not also look at politicians as the exception, that the politician must not buy vote. If party A is buying, the party B will buy, because they think that they are a better candidate. We need to get to the point, that's where we are heading, that citizens need to look at the pitfalls associated with this vote buying. Let's educate more people. Let's conscientize more people. If they decide to take money, because it's an individual basis. I've seen on election ground where voters are gathered in clusters. They were waiting for you to buy the vote. That I don't care. I want to sell my vote. I want to sell. If you don't buy, I'm going home. People came to sell their vote and I tried to interrogate why. I think I've said that on this station before, that most times when you ask them why, they said after now till the next 4 years. So let me collect what I'm able to collect. If that's their basis. So you now have to begin to think, okay, after now till the next 4 years. After now, your fellow family, your friends, your relative may die in the next 4 years.
Let me come to you, Nelson Ekujimi. I want your take on this issue of, this issue of vote buying, particularly with taking the money and voting your conscience. We know you have covered election. I mean, you continue to monitor elections in this country. We've seen in some elections in this country where the politicians too are getting smarter. They know that there are cases where voters take their money and would not vote for them. And so they've devised different means, for instance, to checkmate that. Can you speak to that, please?
Yes, thank you very much. The issue of vote buying is one that we need serious conscientization, sensitization, and education of the electorate, because as much as the voters are trying to be smart, even the political parties themselves are being smarter. You see instances where somebody casts or a vote, and like we had in, was it in Ondo 2014 or 16 thereabout? It was a diboko sebe. I'm using the Yoruba slang. Vote and cook a pot of soup. And how does this take place? Somebody will be sitting not too far from the polling station, watching the ballot box. Immediately you cast your vote. You now have to show your ballot paper so that the spy will know that I have voted for the party. So I'm coming to collect my own share of the bargain, what we agreed. Even in some instances, we have had reports where it was done a day before, that it even had to, some of them even have to resort to, people taking oaths that they are going to vote, for a particular candidate on the basis of what must have exchanged hands between them. So be that as it may, I think the main issue now is for us to sensitize the people on the dangers of that. Voting is not about what you will get. If you are voting for a local government chairman, and at the end of the day, the man is able to, construct roads, to build markets, to build drainages, to provide security in your local government, that is the gain of it. Democracy is not about what is my own gain. It is about what is the gain of the society. It is about the collective. You are not voting because you want the local government chairman to come and tar the road from your kitchen to your bedroom. No. Is it going to construct a road that will benefit the whole society, that will make movements easier and safer for each and every one of us? Is it going to construct markets? Is it going to provide security? Is it going to provide drainages such that our environment is not submerged in floods and what have you? These are the areas we need to sensitize the voter. This idea of what will I get is personal, it's anti-democratic tenets. It's about we. Democracy is not about I. So anybody saying, oh, if I don't collect my own share today, I will not see me the next. You don't need to see the chairman or the governor or the senator or the president. It is what he does that benefits the majority of the people.
Can I ask you this as a way of closing? How do we demonetize politics in this country? Because you get a sense that our politics is being further monetized. When you consider, for instance, how much the political parties are now charging for the sale of forms, and now there's a law that says, for instance, if you're running for the presidency of this country, you can spend up to 5 billion naira. If you're running for the position of governor, you can spend about 1 billion. This is about a lot of money. How then do we demonetize our politics when you have political parties charging so high to sell their forms, and the law now says, you can spend more? How then do we demonetize? How do we address this situation?
Well, I believe one of the ways to address this situation, among several other ways, is for us to have a vigilant and politically conscious electorate, such that even right from the time the parties conduct their primaries, that the electorate are vigilant and watchful to know the activities of those parties and voice their opinions about it. And if possible, they should give them their result card on election day, that look, the way you went about your affairs, that was all about monetization, is not in tandem with our spirit of, humanity. And in that way, it might, go a long way in reordering the situation of things even among the political parties. And also, good governance. If we have governments in office that attends to most of the needs of the people, I think it will go a long way in demonetizing our political process. If we have a government in place that, attends to social welfare scheme for the people, that, addresses the basic infrastructures that persons need to use. Because today, if you don't have electricity in your home or in your office, you need to provide alternative power supply. And when you are providing alternative power supply, you have to get the monies for somewhere. But when you have a situation whereby basic necessities of life are affordable, the quest to always go out for money, the quest for monetization of even relationships will go down, as much as possible. But so long as we have poor governance in which to survive, the only thing you need to survive is all about money. It's not about the humaneness, the humanity sense of belonging does no longer count. Then we'll continue to be in this mess.
Well, unfortunately, we lost Omori Aigbe at some point, and we just lost him. But thank you very much, Nelson Ekujimi, for joining us on the program and for sharing your thoughts with us there. The hope is that, well, let's just hope that citizens learn to do the right thing, and that because the most important thing is if citizens do the right thing, the politicians somehow will fall in line. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much.
Well, that's how much we can take on the program this week. We thank you very much for watching. I'll see you again next week. Bye-bye.